So, I've been thinking about this title that I shared with you. And listen, I want to be frank and candid with you. It's a bit clickbaity. And what I mean to say, oftentimes these titles that are written for women to click on them is all centered on what you need to do to change for a man. And I get it, it's probably frustrating. And at the same time, I want to be candid with you is that you probably wouldn't have clicked on the video if I wrote just a standard title like guys are not going to do whatever you want them to do. Okay. So I wanted to lean into this conversation about what really makes a man feel like, I hope I don't lose this person. And I'll be candid with you. Much of this content is based partly on my own relationship. And there's a picture of me and my beloved right there. But at the same time, I believe that what I'm about to share is centered around human behavior for those that have a healthy love attachment style, for those that have healthy emotional maturity, for those that have relatively good relationship skills. And yet the reality is in the dating, mating, and relating realm, it is rather messed up when it comes to um, meeting your soulmate, meeting that person that you click with, that you vibe with. And I recognize the frustration with that because we are swimming in a sea of dysfunctionality. That's right, we're swimming in a sea of dysfunctionality, primarily when it comes to emotional maturity and particularly in relationship skills. And what I mean by relationship skills, those skills that help two people navigate the challenges in life outside of the attraction piece are for thousands of years, well, for millennia, I should say, that is thousands of years is millennia, for hundreds of thousands of years, most mating practice has been based on physical attraction, that attraction between two people that we feel like we click with this person. We call this chemistry. And when we feel that sense of chemistry, we get this sense that this person is the right person for us. This person is my soulmate. When we feel that initial stage of chemistry. Now, if you're not familiar with my relationship iceberg chart, and I apologize for the glare, I want to show this with you. Above the waterline is attraction. I was just talking about chemistry. At the same time, what really makes a relationship work is what's below the waterline. It's compatibility, it's shared values, blendable lifestyle. As I was just sharing with you, emotional maturity. And without that level of emotional maturity, we could be experiencing one relationship after another. And listen, I get it. It's frustrating. There are men and women out there that are self-centric. There are men and women out there that are either anxious love attachers or avoidant love attachers. And I'll talk about that more in a moment. There's the malignant narcissist. There's the covert incest people are experiencing in relationship. I mean, the list goes on and on of the dysfunctionality of human beings. I think it's really important to understand that because when we approach the dating process with an expectation that this person that we might be meeting has the capacity to actually lean into a healthy, happy relationship, we might be setting up ourselves for failure. Now, I don't mean to be a pessimist either, because I do believe most human beings are good people. Deep down, they're good people for the most part. I think there's very few people that are genuinely evil. At the same time, I do believe we have a significant population of men and women alike that are rather dysfunctional. It makes it hard to build the deep roots of trust. Folks, I want you to think about this for a moment. Our current dating practice is, and for the most part here in the United States, if a guy hasn't had sex with you by the third or fourth date, he's probably out the door. Out the door. Isn't that sad that that would happen? That a person would leave if they haven't had physical intimacy with you. And yet at the same time, they haven't demonstrated any level of trust in the relationship. Maybe they paid for a few dates. Maybe they shared their backstory with you, but what trust has been built in the early stages? And when I think of trust, I think of, Can I count on this person to be there for me, not just during the good times? Can I count on this person to be there for the bad times? Can I count on this person to be genuinely loyal to me when it comes to fidelity? Can I count on this person to care about my feelings as much as I care about my own feelings? Trust, as many of you know, is not given away per se, it's earned over time. And it's sad because if it's not built, if you haven't built the deep roots of trust, it makes it very difficult to lean into, as I always talk about, a juicy, delicious, healthy, happy relationship. So what makes a relationship thrive? What makes a relationship go deeper than the surface? I want you to think about this for a moment, because I know many of you are stuck on the romantic notion of relationships, that a man should just be chivalrous and you can just lean back in your feminine energy and you don't have to do anything, and it's just going to magically work out. And yet I'm a big proponent of recognizing that the dating process is like a two-lane street, two cars traveling at the same speed together, of effort and investment. Effort and investment. If you're not familiar with the book, I'm gonna grab it over here. If the Buddha dated, what I love about this book is it throws out the traditional gender rhetoric of what should happen, and it focuses more on the heart-centered way a relationship could be built. Heart-centered way. Isn't that really what it's all about? What makes a man go, I hope I don't lose her? It's he's connected with her heart. He's connected with her heart. And I know many of you, and by the way, I recognize the frustration many of you are experiencing because you do give your heart to a man. And yet oftentimes you also give your power away to a man. In other words, you're afraid to establish your standards. You're afraid to establish your boundaries because the minute there's mutual attraction between two people, you're pretzeling yourself to try to make the relationship work. Now, I think this happens because traditionally, throughout time, women have been dependent upon men for their survival. So on some level, I think we've been conditioned to have this one up, one down dynamic where women might be the gatekeepers of the sexual piece and men are the gatekeepers of the commitment piece. Isn't that sad? Now, that's not always the case, but this is genuinely the case. This is why I continually see women afraid to speak their truth in relationship. They're afraid to speak up for fear that a man might leave them. Folks, if you're not familiar with my book, and by the way, all the books I recommend are in the description below. You can check out Jonathan Recommend Books. My first chapter is Speak Your Truth. Do it with kindness. But later on the book, and this isn't a dating or relationship book, later on the book, I say, if it's sincere and from the heart, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. I'm talking when you genuinely talk from your heart. You know, real bonding happens when we're vulnerable, when we're authentic, when we're transparent, when two people are capable of doing that. And yet, sadly, the deepest wound most people are suffering from is, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, and I'm not likable. Think about that. The average person's wound is, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, and I'm not likable. This is true of men and women alike. This is why I'm a big proponent of doing personal development work, self-help, spiritual work, therapy. Therapy. To dig deep as to what might be causing our inability to lean into a relationship too. And by the way, this is true of men and women alike. Now, I know many of you are going, well, Jonathan, we women do all the work. What about the men? Listen, I went to a personal development workshop called the Hoffman Process. I want to share this with you for a second. Here's a copy of the book. I went to the live retreat, the Hoffman Process. Do you know there was 39 people there? 20 of them were men and 19 were women. Over half were men. Men do personal development work. Men may not go to, it's interesting. Men go to therapy just like women go to therapy. I just want you to know that they do go. Maybe do women go at a greater percentage? I don't know the stats on that. But I do know men and women alike are thirsty for that capacity to share their fears, to share their anxieties, to share their insecurities. And yet we men have been so conditioned that if we share these, we are perceived as weak. We can't show weakness. Women have been conditioned in a different way. Sadly, women have been conditioned that their whole value is based on looks. Isn't that sad? And it's perpetuated by magazines, Cosmo, all the advertising we see. Women are objectified based on looks. Men cannot be vulnerable, authentic, and transparent because that demonstrates weakness. That demonstrates our inability to protect you. Not every guy can protect you physically. Most men have never had a fight in their life. So if some real mugger or someone with a gun, we're most likely going to fail. So it has nothing to do with our height, our capacity to protect you. I know many of you feel greater protection when you're with someone that of height, but that's a fallacy. At least here in the United States, unless someone has had physical training to protect you, most of us will fail under a real crisis situation. I'm just expressing the way I see the reality of the world. I'm not saying any of this is right. I'm here to just draw attention that the real journey of life, and I come back to this title, isn't about whether or not the things you need to do to make a man attracted to you. These things aren't necessarily anything you should do. It's what two people should do together to build attraction. By the way, I don't like the way my collar looks here. Okay? What both people should do to develop this attraction, to make it feel like you don't want to lose each other. So let me dive into my notes here and I'll share with you what I've written here. By the way, there you go. I do want to clean my glasses though for a second. And these 5 things I think are more designed for the healthier person, that person that has good emotional maturity, good relationship skills. Doesn't have to be the perfect person in the world, but they have good skills in these areas. And the first skill is conflict resolution skills. You know, men and women alike feel frustrated when they're in a relationship with someone where you're butting heads, when there's a difference of opinion, you're butting heads. You're more apt to say, I'd rather be right than happy. One of the things I appreciate about the relationship I'm in is when we had a few bumps in the road, we both listen to what each other says. We acknowledge what each other says. And then we validate that that's true for their perspective. In other words, we don't make the other person out to be wrong. Those are skills for good conflict resolution skills. And what I mean to say is be able to navigate conflicts with a bit more ease. If you're not familiar with the book, where is it? I wonder if well, here's a book I want to recommend. If you're not familiar with the book, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg, I'd highly recommend checking this out. It helps to teach you how to improve your communication skills in relationship. I recommend if you're in a relationship with someone, you both should be reading this. You should both be actually engaging in this. Listen, folks, if this penis gets to go regularly inside your vagina, then I'm here to encourage that you begin a practice of personal development, self-help, spiritual work, therapy in your relationship, counseling, if you will, in your relationship right from the very beginning. Not necessarily on the first date, but once you have regular intimacy with each other. But Jonathan, I'm in a long distance relationship. I can't do that. Folks, long distance relationships are incredibly problematic because when I talked about trust earlier, it takes about 100 hours of face-to-face time just to build the first layer of trust. It takes 200 hours of face-to-face time to build the second layer of trust. It takes 300 hours of face-to-face time to build the third layer of trust. It takes 400 face-to-face hours together to build the fourth and the fifth and the sixth. Do you get this? Relationships built over the telephone and FaceTime are built on a very weak foundation. True love is built through social activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, and integration of your life together. And what I mean by true love, what I mean is the true attachment and bonding. Unhealthy people can attach over the telephone. I've witnessed this so many times. Women come to me and say, Jonathan, I've been in this relationship with a guy. We have never met, but he's so attached to me. Yeah, it's an unhealthy attachment or an infatuation or maybe some precursor to lust that's happening over the phone and not a real building. I'm saying it takes face-to-face time to build the deep roots of trust. And more importantly, the capacity for both of you to navigate those differences in relationships with good conflict resolution skills. Number 2, intimate time, both physical and emotional intimate time. Listen, I recognize, ladies, a lot of the men you're with are just one of those, what I call pump and dump types. You know, they basically have sex with you so they can ejaculate inside of you. Okay? And those men are very selfish lovers. I get it. And you might, with some of those men, you might actually experience an orgasm. I don't know. But for the most part, if he's a selfish lover, it's rare that you're going to experience real connection with him, because ultimately it's not just the physical intimacy we men crave, it's the emotional intimacy. It's that intimacy that we can feel safe, we can feel vulnerable with you. We do feel that sense of trust. That's emotional intimacy. And if you're not familiar with the book Emotional Intimacy by Robert Masters, I highly recommend checking this book out. Because if you don't understand the mechanics to building emotional intimacy, then many of you are just winging it. You're winging it. You're winging it. You're just kind of hoping that magic fairy dust is going to make things work out. Now, some people, just like the broken clock that's right twice a day, some people do experience emotional intimacy. The others, if they haven't learned what emotional intimacy is, they rarely are going to find themselves in the experience of emotional intimacy. So again, this makes them feel like I don't want to lose her when we're getting all this. Next is shared duties. Remember I talked earlier about 2 cars traveling at the same speed? Shared duties in your life, acting like you're teammates with one another. You know, with my mom and dad, it was my dad was the provider, my mom was the homemaker. But shared duties, just like if you're hosting Thanksgiving dinner that recently happened, you know, in my world, experience that we took turns in preparing for this. Couples that actually operate as teammates with one another, not the expecting the one. Listen, I think it's unfair that men expect things from you and not do it in return. But I also believe it's the same with women when you expect things from men and not willing to reciprocate in that same level. And when you act as teammates, however that looks for the two of you, you start to build those deep roots of trust I talked about earlier. Number 5, play. Do you know how few folks actually, I witness relationships, and there's very few couples that write me complaining about their relationship. Play and flirting is missing from the relationship. Couples should be constantly playing with one another. Their little kids should come out. I don't mean playing blocks or dolls or things like that, or video games. I'm talking about your little kid coming out and playing with one another. That place that feels safe. And flirtation is one of those aspects of play. I believe that those couples that continually flirt with one another in a cute, playful way are the men that go, and women go, I don't want to lose this person. And last but not least, I mentioned this before, is integration of your lives. When you can integrate with family, friends, social activities, hobbies, mutual interests. When you can integrate your life together, your work life, You're building the deep roots of attachment to a person. And I mean healthy attachment to a person, and not the unhealthy attachment most people are experiencing today. And sadly, many of you are in unhealthy relationships. You're attached to a person that's unhealthy, and you're not standing in your power. This is why I continually recommend the book. Ladies, if you haven't read this, and I don't agree with everything in this book, but this book, oops, excuse me, the wrong one. Where is it? Why Men Love Bitches. And bitch stands for babe, in total control of herself, yes. When you're in your power, when you're standing in your power, you become incredibly attractive to another human being who is also in their power. Men do not like doormats. Listen, controlling men love doormats. Alpha males who are controlling prefer submissive women. I'm here to encourage you to stand in your power, because listen, as much as you'd like to have men be the leaders of a relationship, I'm here to say you are in charge of your relationship destiny. You are in charge of your choices. Look, I wish I could be there for you as your big brother on a first date with a shotgun pointed at the guy's head saying, what's your intentions? See, accountability for one's actions go basically not unnoticed. Accountability, there's very little accountability today. So you have to be in charge of your life, setting your standards, setting your boundaries, and whatever that looks like for you. Folks, my standard for a relationship looked like this. I wanted to spend 3 or 4 days and nights a week together, doing shared activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, traveling together, teamwork, building skills, both in our personal and our professional life, intimacy, both physical and emotional intimacy that led to either moving in together or getting married. Well, that's what happened in my relationship in 6 months. We were intentional. Listen, don't expect men to be intentional. You should be intentional with your life, and then find men who match you. Send out that energy that you know your standard, and you won't accept anything less than a person that meets you, not exactly meets you in the perfect box, because that doesn't exist, but at least is meeting you and saying, I want to build something with you. Because without it, it's going to be difficult to have that kind of relationship where you feel like, I don't want to lose this person. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating? Please let me know. All right. I think this would be a great place to start with our Q&A. For those who are familiar with my format, if you have a question for me, write the word question, then post the question thereafter, or you can purchase a super sticker, super chat. All of the money, and there's a little $ in the chat box. All the monies from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor Asley. That's him right there in the Obey shirt. He's my son who passed away 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago now. And in his honor, I've started a scholarship fund. So if you're watching the replay, you can purchase a super thanks. And I appreciate those that donate. And all the monies go to charities like the nonprofit groups, personal development groups like the Hoffman Process and Insight Seminars, just to name a few. And I noticed someone did generously donate earlier. Let me go here and say, Deborah, thank you so much for the $5 super sticker. I really appreciate it. All right, let's see what questions we have. Let's see. Elena, no, I haven't received it yet. I'm going to get my mail soon. All right, let's see what we have here. I saw a question earlier for those. Okay, Jade wrote, question. What are the layers of trust? E.g., what is the first layer of trust after 100 hours of face-to-face time? Second layer after 200 hours. So, as I said before, trust is really, have we built loyalty with each other? Have we built an emotional connection where you say the other person's feelings matter as much to me as my own? You know, oftentimes we think about not hurting someone's feelings, okay, by telling them the truth, right? That's why men ghost, that's why men disappear, but that's not really in the other person's best interest. Just because you don't want to hurt someone's feelings doesn't necessarily, but really, if you ghost, disappear, pull away, ask for space, that creates even harsher feelings on the other person. So trust ultimately is basically that space between you where you can be vulnerable, you can be authentic, and you can be transparent with one another. That even through the tough times, you're saying, I want to at least make effort to work this out. And the reason why it takes time to build this loyalty and trust from a healthy perspective is because most everybody's establishing relationships that are they're not actually investing in those things I talked about: social activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, traveling together, intimacy, both in teamwork and intimacy. And it takes time to build those roots together. That's why the closer two people live together, the greater chance of relationship success. And I only harp on long distance relationships because of these devices, many people are spending more. Listen, I want you to think about this. Before answering machines, before pagers, listen, you could only date someone who lived in your circle, and you would call them and meet them. Now we can connect with people all over the world and have a cyber relationship, not a real relationship, a cyber relationship. And that's one of the newer casual cyber relationships make up probably a third or more of the relationships out there for those who are single these days. That's just my perception anyway. So anyways, the time is the more you invest in each other mutually, the greater chance for relationship success. Okay. All right, let's see what we've got here. Cynthia says, I agree. Teammates, intentional. Exactly. All right, here we go. VR has a question. I have a man in my life that truly and deeply loves me, but I'm no longer physically attracted to him. I'm remaining open, but I don't know what else to do. Any suggestions? You know, people, here's the tricky part. What if it was a man who said the same thing? My wife, who I've been married to for 20 years, I love her deeply. She loves me deeply, but she's overweight. I'm just picking on that. How would you want a man to respond? Then the question is, are you repulsed by them physically? Is it that their physical appearance has changed? Or is there something, when you talk about attraction, my girlfriend jokes with me. She wishes she saw the 40-year-old version of me, and I do the same. We joke with each other. We've aged. We have wrinkles. We're not as thin as we used to be. We're not as taut as we used to be. We're attracted to each other's souls at the same time. So if you're not physically attracted to him, are you still attracted to his soul? That would be a question I have for you. Has he changed in some way? Because true love doesn't reside in the things that you like. True love resides in the things you don't like. That's where real love resides. And when you can really, the question really becomes, what is unconditional love in a relationship? Does that exist? Where it doesn't matter what they look like. Do you care for the person's soul? These are just questions I have. I just invite you to look deep down and ask, are you attracted to this person's soul? Or is it, and if it's a physical thing and you don't want to have physical intimacy with them, maybe you guys should do, I don't know. I'm only going to suggest this, I'm going to say maybe you should try swinging or something like that. I'm very reluctant to share that, but I think you should have a conversation with each other, because this is important to him too. Because people, listen, don't you want to feel attracted? Don't you want your partner to feel attracted to you? And if he didn't, wouldn't you want to know about that? Let's throw out the swinging thing, okay? But anyway, that's my suggestion. Be curious and be open as to why. All right, great question, VR. Thank you. Let's go swimming. Leslie writes, question. Trust has been so hard for me. How do I let go of my past issues and fully trust the man I'm in love with now and not sabotage our relationship? I would seek counseling. I would seek therapy. I would do a deep dive into where that trust, where was trust lost for you? Was it in your childhood? Did something happen traumatically in your childhood? Was it an adult experience that caused you to lose trust? Also, trust in yourself. I would do a deep dive into therapy to find out where the root of that is, heal that pain, and then allow yourself to be open and receptive to the person who loves you. Because sabotaging a relationship, that's not fun. And also invite him into the conversation. It's no fun to be with somebody who's going to try to sabotage the relationship. That's not the kind of relationship that builds that. It's by being open and honest, can you actually work on it? Maybe do couples therapy together. That would be my suggestion anyway. Great question, Leslie. Thank you. Naida says, question. When I ask someone I like if he's seeing and meeting and dating someone, why I don't get the answer from him, I asked twice. So I think what you're asking is why. Okay, so I'm going to just make an assumption here. In the early stage of dating, these days most people are doing what's called duty dating or circular dating. They're dating multiple people at the same time. I'm not a big proponent of dating multiple people at the same time, especially if the penis gets to go inside the vagina on a regular basis. So, and if they're deceptive, it's because you guys haven't established that you're in what I believe is in a monogamous exclusive relationship. Oh, I forgot to bring my dating vows. Where's my dating vows? If in the description below is a copy of my dating vows. I'm going to try to pull it up on one of my videos here. Okay. I forgot to bring my sheet. That's not like me. So let me bring it up from one of my videos. Okay, the dating vows go like this. Okay. By the way, these are in the bottom of my, in the description notes. Have you ever heard the saying, women are the gatekeepers of sex and men are the gatekeepers of commitment? The dating vow is the following, where you both mutually say this to one another. I agree to explore the process of getting to know you with the intent to declare something serious within 3 to 6 months. I agree to be monogamous sexually while we're having regular sex together. I agree not to actively seek to meet and date others while we're in the dating process, including taking down our dating profiles. I agree to speak up front if this isn't working for me versus ghosting, pulling away, or disappearing. I agree to invest regular time together in the process of getting to know you, which looks like spending 3 or 4 days and nights a week together, doing shared activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends together, intimacy, both physical and emotional intimacy, travel, that leads to either us moving in together or getting married. Now, 90% of guys will most likely bail on this. That's because there's this perceived, there's this perception that we can just swipe and someone else will just come into our lives. But if he genuinely cares about you, because that's really what this is about, you genuinely care about each other. I think if you're going to have regular sex, there should be genuine care for one another. And if it's not, then you're both equally entitled to do whatever you want and date multiple people at the same time. That's my perception anyway. All right, great question. Thank you so much. All right, let's keep swimming. And again, if you have a question, write the word question and post the question thereafter. My question is, he is not working for me. He's thinking what it is. He is not working for me. He is thinking what is best for him and what is best for me. But he's not thinking and not caring what is best for us. Why is that? You know, folks, most people these days, okay, I want to share with you 2 things. There's three types of people actively dating today. Okay? I want you to look at this. There's the users, the spenders, and the growers and builders. Now, the users are those seek short-term gain, love bombers, players, gold diggers, entitled people, selfish people who are only caring about their needs. The spenders, these want to spend time with you. They seek connection, companionship, coupling, sex, no direction, uncertainty, fearful, usually have a dysfunctional life. And the builders, they seek a long-term commitment. They're emotionally grown up, good relationship skills. They have their act together. The builders are intentional about building something with you. Most 60% of the population are spenders, along with the 20% of the users. So you have to ask yourself, is this person a builder? Does this person really want to build something with me? By the way, one of the things I do in my private coaching, by the way, there's a link right there to schedule a free discovery call with me. My whole coaching program is all designed to teach you what questions to ask someone based on your personality to determine, are you compatible with one another? And most importantly, I teach you the skills to vet for his emotional maturity. You have to be your own matchmaker if you want to have any relationship success. So again, coming back to your question, why is he doing this? He's most likely a spender is why. They might be a user as well. All right, thank you so much for your question. Candy, I know I said swinging. I don't know, sometimes that helps. By the way, from what I understand, I know I said it begrudgingly, but from what I understand, for some couples, this helps with mutual attraction. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it's something to consider. Linda says, when I lose respect for someone, it's over. Sadly, the sad part is when we're attached to someone, it's difficult to say it's over when we lose respect for someone. Yet I understand how you feel there. So thanks for sharing that. Rose writes, question. Why would a man tell you that he truly cares for you and says he has deep connection with you, then a few months later, he ghosted you? Great question. So, Rose, if you're not familiar with the word lust or limerence, I highly recommend Googling both those words. Lust is that physical attraction to want to have sex with you. And men will say, listen, when I'm hyped up on lust, I have said anything to get a woman in bed. Oh my God, you're the most amazing person I've never met. Oh my God, I've never met a person like you. Oh my God, I can see us getting married sometimes. You're just so amazing. A lot of guys will say this in the early stages, okay? Limerence is extreme infatuation. What was I watching? It was one of those romantic comedies where the guy was just completely, with some young, not an American Pie type of thing, but where the guy was just completely infatuated with someone he barely knew. So we can say that for a few months. What happens is once the real building blocks of a relationship comes from actually physically spending time with one another. And what's mostly not happened is you haven't built the deep friendship with one another. Folks, I think what makes my relationship, what I'm appreciating most is my partner has become my best friend. She's become my best friend. We are friends with each other. One of the things I think we appreciate about each other is that we genuinely like each other. We genuinely like each other. So I suspect that just didn't happen in your relationship. And that's not a guarantee that it's going to happen just because someone has attraction for you. So Rose, I'm sending you a big, gigantic Jonathan Bear hug. All right, Melanie writes, question. Hey, I'm in a relationship of 8 months and I do not want to lose it. My issue is I have limited abilities and depends on the day. So I've been disabled. What do I do when resentment builds? What is resentment? But God, that's a tough one. I'm a big proponent of where can we find the love in a situation? Where can we find the love, between two people? Where does unconditional love lie? How does that happen? And I want to say, being disabled is difficult. I understand that. To have a disability, whether they have a disability or you have a disability, how do two people find their way together to that unconditional place where we look beyond it? I think when it's kind of like what I talked about in this broadcast, have you built that deep friendship with one another where you think, I hope I don't lose this person no matter what they go through? That takes a conscious effort to happen. And a lot of you are in relationships with spenders. You're just spending time with one another. Deep love is built through these roots of trust that I talk about. If you're not familiar with the book, How to Make Love All the Time by Barbara DeAngelis, I love this book because it talks about the building blocks to build that type of unconditional love. I can't give you the answers. All these beautiful answers are in the many books I recommend. By the way, there's a link below to all the books I do recommend. So that would be my invitation for you for right now, Melanie, and I'm sending you a big hug. Barbara says, that wasn't the response I expected. I know. I said the swinger thing. I don't know. I was just having a brain fart in that moment. All right. And I agree. Swinging for some people might be disgusting. All right. Let's see. Kim says, Jonathan has good tips on building before you go exclusive. Friends first. I'm in agreement with that. Okay. If you have a question, write the word question, then post the question thereafter. Naida says, I'm still learning and not yet ready for your book and other books you highly recommend. Oh, you're not done reading them. Go for it. I hope you do read them. Jennifer does have a question. Long-term relationship, and I got scared and became needy when he didn't give me attention. For last year, it was a long distance, and he was so busy in his work, he gave up on us. What do I do? These are difficult questions when you're dealing with long distance, because it's natural to feel, listen, I think constant, it's interesting. I'm living with my partner right now. So we see each other every day. We're practically 24/7 because I work from home and she's retired. So we have built trust with each other because we've been together a lot. It's hard. Listen, when you think of some of the most successful relationships, it's because they spend a significant amount of time together so they don't feel the fear when there is space. There's this belief that space creates that mystery and missing someone. I'm like, space, all that does for a lot of people can create anxiety. So it's difficult on these circumstances and how do you build it long distance? Listen, by the way, we were a long distance relationship. There was 1,800 miles that was between us. By our third time together, our third visit with each other, we agreed that if this was going to work, we'd have to either be physically in the same proximity or we'd have to live together. Now that's a risk. Listen, it's a risk to live together. But we also laid our cards on the table. We practiced radical honesty. We practiced radical honesty with one another. And we laid our cards on the table and we said, okay, for this to work, we're going to have to live together. That was how we made it work. If you don't have a plan to take the distance and bring it closer together, it's going to be problematic, most likely. It's hard enough to make a relationship work when you live 10 miles from one another. And it's 10 times more problematic when you're 1,800 miles or even 300 miles. So without a plan, that is a common experience of it not working out. And I'm sorry about that. You didn't most likely build the deep roots of trust to make it so he didn't want to lose you and vice versa. Okay, thank you for your question, Jennifer. And thank you for the thank you. I appreciate that. Lisa says, question, but is it possible for a spender to become a builder? Great question. Let's come back to the 3 types of people actively dating. Okay. Spenders can either go to become users, which does happen, or they can become growers and builders. Okay. Here's how they become growers and builders. When you set your standards, when you intentionally do the dating vows with one another, it will weed out the spenders quite quickly. Okay. Now, at least in the early stages, how does a spender turn into a builder? When you are crystal clear that moving in together or some level of partnership is the only way you'll move forward in the relationship. If you're not familiar with the book 8 Dates, and I talk about this frequently, before the penis goes inside the vagina, read this and read this together. If he's a spender, then read it together right now, because I'd rather you cut your losses sooner rather than later. If he's never going to turn into a fully committed person, I'd highly recommend reading this book. All right, good luck with you, sweetheart. Big hugs to you. Thank you, Leslie. Catherine says, best friends is awesome. It did happen for me with my late husband. I'm glad it is happening for you. Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate that. Resentment is another word for unforgiveness. You know, I was thinking that resentment is unnecessary, not unnecessary pain on yourself. Forgiveness is really to relieve you of the burden of the pain. So thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. Jay writes, question. Been with my guy 5 months. All things you say we have been doing. I'm scared I'm somehow a spender. I believe I'm with a builder. He's amazing. Can I make myself into a builder? Intentional conversations about the future. Intentional conversations is how you shift, not passive conversations. And by the way, folks, we should be cutting our losses. If we're not capable of a deeper love for someone or commitment, then maybe we should be let me ask it to you this way. If you care about his feelings, then you should be open and honest as where you're at. And if you're going to make this relationship work, then you should have a plan. Talk to a counselor, meet with a therapist, have conversations with a professional in the room, because it's going to be, listen, you can the pink elephant, swiping it under the rug, all that does is create resentments later. Be proactive. Don't be passive is my invitation for you. Thanks, Jay. I appreciate that. Let's see. Jennifer writes, he doesn't show me his feelings. He used to show it, but I didn't know how to react, how to make men show his feelings when you are really close. Why don't they show their feelings? Men have been taught to repress their feelings. We have been conditioned to repress our feelings. Remember, I started in the beginning of this broadcast. We are conditioned to repress our feelings. That's why I recommend reading the books I recommend to create that emotional intimacy between you two. I would read the book. Here's a great book to read to shift the narrative. I Hear You, The Surprisingly Simple Skills to Extraordinary Relationships by Michael Sorensen. I highly recommend reading that book to change your narrative. So thank you, Jennifer. All right. I just want to give props to Barbara. Thank you for the $9.99 super sticker. The Connor Asley Fund appreciates you. All right. Jade writes, question. How to present an intentional man asking him about monogamy without coming across as pushy, needy, controlling? What is a healthy way to express intentionality? Great question. I love this. So before your penis gets to go inside my vagina, here are my rules. Now, what I mean to say is you establish your standards. Let me be candid with you. I don't know if you're like me, but I'm seeking a relationship where we spend actively 3 or 4 days and nights a week together, doing shared activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, traveling together, teamwork, building skills, both in our personal and our professional life, intimacy, both physical and emotional intimacy that leads to us either moving in together or getting married at some point. My hope is that in a relationship by the 3rd to 6 month mark, we are intentional and serious about this. So that's my standard. What is your standard in a relationship? Oh my God, I'm just not looking for anything serious. I just want something casual. Okay, I understand that. You realize it takes time to get to know someone. So maybe we should hold off the sex piece, or maybe you should go find someone that fits the narrative you're looking for. This is my standard, and I won't compromise myself on it. Set your boundaries. That's my invitation for you. All right, thank you, Jade, for that question. Might Esther Perel's book help VR with her question about no longer being physically attracted to man? I feel I saw something at somewhere. Okay. Where is Mating in Captivity? Where's my book? Mating in Captivity. Great book. I think this is a good book from the perspective of talking about erotic connection. I'm not an expert on attraction. That's not my area of expertise. My area of expertise is to wake you folks up to reading and learning and growing. So I do recommend this book. The subtitle, Can We Desire What We Already Have? Does Good Intimacy Always Make for Hot Sex? Definitely good recommendation list. Thank you for suggesting it. So to VR, that would be a good recommendation as well. So throw out my stupid swingers thing. All right, let's keep swimming. All right. True rights question. My boyfriend has issues with a disconnected relationship with his mom at a young age, had to live with his father at age 14, and now as an adult has gotten too close to her. And there's a follow-up. Now that he has partially moved to another state with me, he is feeling like he's losing her again. People move away from their parents all the time. How can I be the main woman? Oh, you know what? This is a tough one because, listen, we all need, my recommendation is we all heal our childhood wounds and the traumas and adult traumas that cause us not to be able to lean into love with someone. So I definitely come back to this book that I recommend. Well, I recommend first reading the book, Getting the Love You Want by Harvell Hendrix and Helen Hunt. Why do I recommend reading this book? Is to understand what's known as the imago, IMAGO. This is where we tend to choose people that are similar to one or both of our parents, and we want to heal that relationship. So understanding this. But I said earlier about the childhood wounds and traumas, coming back to the Hoffman process. He's got to do the work for him to be able to actually lean into a relationship with you. The challenge with most men and women is they haven't done the personal development, self-help, and spiritual work that allows them to lean into a healthy, happy relationship. The reality is most people have terrible relationship skills and emotional maturity. If you're not familiar with my chart on emotional maturity and relationship skills, this is not a fact, it's merely an opinion. Most everybody has 20% have clinical issues. And while I say 20% of the population is healthy, or at least good relationship skills, most everyone is dysfunctional. This is why 80% of the population or more needs deep work, whether it's therapy, personal development, self-help, and spiritual work. Because it's going to be difficult and also it helps you build the skills to be able to lean into a relationship. So these are the tough ones, and I get it. That's hard, but he's got to do the work on his part for him to be able to lean into a relationship with you. Thank you, True, for that question. Cynthia writes, living and loving out loud is the true peace in a relationship, privacy versus secrecy. Is he being private or secret when not friends on Facebook? You know what? I can't stand this bullshit. Someone, listen, if his penis gets to go inside your vagina, you have every right to be able to be friends on social media. So maybe prior to that, but certainly I think listen, our social media footprint gives us insight into a person if we know how to read what it says about a person. So I think you have every right to want that. Is it secrecy? Yeah. Maybe he has a deep wound that happened in the past. Most likely that's it. And it's secrecy, most likely. Thank you for that question. I really appreciate it. Marianne writes, question. Do you think it takes courage to be in your empowerment? I wanted to thank you because listening to your videos has caused me to reach out to somebody and it was well received. Do you think it takes courage? Absolutely it takes being vulnerable, being authentic, being transparent is a very brave thing to do. You know, what does Brene Brown say? Oh God, it just escapes me right now. She says vulnerability is the true act of courage. And I believe vulnerability is the essence of empowerment. When we can express ourselves and knowing that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. That takes courage because most people are fearful of speaking their truth. So yes, I do believe that. Thank you so much. All right. Let's see. Let's go swimming. All right, we don't have any questions right now. I need some questions on the board. Or you can purchase a super sticker, super chat. All of the monies from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor Hasley. By the way, my mug today says, I don't want to work anymore. I just want to be put up on a pedestal, taken care of. Put up on a pedestal, cherished, put up on a pedestal and taken care of. All right, Melanie writes, question. I'm almost an empty nester, but we cannot move in together for a year. We've said this, but I feel he's losing trust. If I have plans change, he starts to question trust. How do I respond? Listen, one of the fundamentals understanding when you are in a relationship with a person that has children, that each person needs to recognize that there are going to be times plans change. Now, if there's a pattern of it, then I think there needs to be a discussion to how to resolve things or at least make agreements with one another so he doesn't feel like he or she doesn't feel like they're being used by the other person. So I would have conversations. But if you're constantly placating to your children, that could be problematic as well. But I think deep open conversation is what's going to help. All right, thank you so much for that. Jade says, I appreciate all your book recommendations, guidance, Jonathan. Thank you for everything you've been doing for us. You're my great big brother. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. It's Corny Cobb with her personal questions for me. So if you have a question for me personally, write the word personal question and then ask it to me. I'll spend the last few minutes answering personal questions. How often do you give dating and relationship advice to people in your life? All day long. Practically every minute of the day I do it. So thank you so much for that question. I appreciate it. Have same jobs with your partner is good or bad? I think it can be really good for people that are well suited for one another, and it can be bad for people who are not well suited for one another. So, you know, it's a flip of a coin. I think if my girlfriend started to shoot videos with me, which I'm hoping she does, and she invests in my business, I think I'd be very grateful for that. So thank you for that question. I appreciate it. Another personal question. Jennifer writes, do you and your partner have, Did you and your partner ever, have you ever broke up? No, we have not broken up. We live together. That would be kind of complicated. So no, we have not had a situation where we've broken up. In fact, our relationship continually seems to get more and more. One of the things we do together is each month we devote to our personal development in our relationship. We either do a workshop with a group of people, or we do our own workshop where we actually, we call it camping, where we literally make time for the entire day to connect on both an intimate level, but more importantly on an emotional level, which includes really talking about the building blocks to a successful relationship. I tend to initiate the conversations because I'm a little bit more schooled, but we continually talk about some of our differences and how we see the world differently. What's most important is we have these regular conversations with one another. We're not just passive in this relationship. We're active in co-creating what this relationship looks like, which includes planning trips together. We planned, a holiday together. All these things we're doing as teammates with one another. We treat each other like teammates. That's what I appreciate most in our relationship. So thank you for that question. I really appreciate it. All right. Leslie writes, I hate social media. He wants pictures of us on my Facebook page, but he never puts pictures of us on his. He wants people I know to know we're together. Should I be at the same? Look at, then make a deal. You go first and I'll go next, and we'll take turns posting pictures. And if he says no, then you say, I'm going to say no. I'm going to match your energy. If you want that, start on your page, and then I'll do it. And then I'll do it the next time, and then you do it, and you just take turns. I know that's cheesy, but that's what I would recommend. Annie says, how do you establish a monthly meeting with one another? I'm usually the initiator. I'd say, this is the time I want us to camp. We started camping very early in our relationship. It's more of a spiritual thing that we are involved in. So there's a lot of, if you're not familiar with Tantra and tantric guided meditations and things like that, I'd recommend that, or look into that if I were you. And it's not just the sexual piece. It's about connecting with your partner in a heart-centered way. Start Googling things like this, folks. How to build intimacy with my partner. We do this through a minimum of once a month, but we do it constantly in our relationship. But I like to devote an entire day to what I call our love day. It's camping or love day, where we're intentional with one another. Thank you for that question. I really appreciate it. Folks, I'm coming up on an hour of being able to play with you this early morning with you. I am so grateful for all your questions. I am so grateful for the super stickers, super chats. You guys are so wonderful. Thank you so much for all the love and support. I just want to remind you that, folks, being intentional, being your own matchmaker, learning how to ask better questions is a pathway to relationship success. Because you can't expect men to know this. And yet men who genuinely care about you will take your lead. Men who genuinely care about you will take your lead. And I think you should start from the very first date, establishing your standards so you're both on the same page. That's something I teach in my private coaching. And if you need help with that, check out the link to a free discovery call with me to see if working with the coach is right for you. Has this content resonated with you? Please let me know. Please hit that like button. Please share this video with your friends. Please subscribe to my channel if you're brand new, and check out all the links in the description below. All right, I think this will be a great place to wrap up this video. First off, giving myself a big, gigantic Jonathan Bear hug of self-love. I'm going to reach into the pit stains. I'm going to reach in the camera and give you a hug of love. I'm going to ask you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow. There's a teddy bear, and give it or them a hug of love, because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we could all use more love in our lives. I want to thank Stormy and Mari and Annie and Barbara and Kim and Jade and Monica and Dee Washington and let's see, Jennifer and Sonia and Leslie, Courtney Cobb, everyone, thank you so much for your love and support. Wishing you a fabulous day. Bye now.